Welcome everyone to Torah Today Ministries and our continuing series called Sage Advice, where we look at the lives of some of the great sages of Israel and the Jewish geniuses through time. And this week, instead of looking at a particular rabbi, we're looking at a book, an anonymous book. And if we knew who wrote it, we'd be talking about him. But the name of the book is Orchos Tzaddikim, which means the ways of the righteous, or the paths of the righteous. It's a wonderful book. I've had it in my library for many years. Originally it came out in 2 or 3 volumes by Feldheim Publishers, but now they've got it all together in 1 volume. In fact, they offer 2 different editions. But I recommend the one that you see here on the screen because it has extra explanatory notes and comments by Rabbi Avraham Yachanes. And it's just a wonderful work. Just a little bit of background. We don't know, as I mentioned, who the author was, but it was written in 1430. Now, you have to remember, this is 6 years before the printing press was invented. And as soon as the printing press was invented, it came out in print. It came out in Yiddish, it came out in Hebrew, and now you can get it in English, of course. The original title, the title that the author gave the book, was Sefer HaMidot, which means the Book of Traits. Midot referred to character traits, good traits, bad traits, and working on one's character is an ongoing project in Judaism. I know it's discussed in Christianity that we need to become better people, we need to become more like Yeshua, which I couldn't agree with more. But in Judaism, there's a very purposeful approach to taking each character trait in your life and then working on it conscientiously. For many years, when I was a congregational leader at Beth Tikkun Messianic Fellowship, I would put a slide up on the screen before the teaching, and it asked the question, have you worked on your soul today? And so these books on Midot are books on doing soul work. And this is my favorite, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. There are many books out there, but I don't think you're going to find a better one than this. At least that's my opinion. The book, Orchos Tzaddikim, is a book of Musar. Midot are character traits, but Musar is the training, the discipline, the instruction of making ourselves people who are wiser, people who are more self-disciplined. Now, Musar may be a new term to you. I've used it in some of the Psalms teachings. But this word musar appears in the Hebrew 30 times in the book of Proverbs. And unfortunately, it's translated various ways. And I wish the translators would just pick one good word and stick with that one word throughout the book of Proverbs. But they don't. But let me give you a few examples from Proverbs where this word is used. Proverbs chapter 1, we'll start with verse 1, the first 3 verses of Proverbs. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and musar, to understand words of insight, to receive musar and wise dealing and righteousness, justice, and equity. And then you go down to verse 7. Verses 7 and 8 read this way. The fear of Adonai is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and musar. Hear, my son, your father's musar, and forsake not your mother's teaching. And then just a few more. Proverbs 5, the chapter is about the person who's caught up in sexual sin. And it's about the adulterer, the adulteress. And then it talks about, in verse 12, how when that person comes to the end of their life, it says, and you will say, how I hated musar, and my heart despised reproof. And then when you go down to verse 23, it tells us the outcome of this person's life. He will die for lack of musar, and because of his great folly, he is led astray. And just 2 more. Proverbs 6:23, for the commandment is a lamp and the Torah a light, and the reproofs of Musar are the way of life. In other words, the mitzvot provide light. The Torah, are the lamp. The Torah is the light, but the way you walk out of the Torah requires Musar. And the last one, Proverbs 12:1, whoever loves Musar loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. I don't want to be stupid. I know you don't want to either. So I really encourage you to, whether it's this book or another, to be constantly spending some time each day studying Musar. I know I have a long way to go in developing my character and being more disciplined and not misusing my speech and not wasting my time. But I know this. I wouldn't be nearly as far along the road if I didn't have these wonderful books of Musar. So, one of the things I love about this book is the way it's organized. And each character trait, it addresses 28 character traits, is referred to as a gate. So there's the gate of haughtiness, the gate of humility, the gate of shame, and these are the 28 gates that are covered in this book. And you can print out the notes or go back and look at this in more detail later on. But you'll notice some of these are positive traits and some of these are negative traits. So you can think of as a gate as a place that needs to be entered, and you either need to conquer the negative trait that is in that gate, or you need to capture the positive trait that's in that gate. But whenever the author speaks of one of these traits and discusses it, he'll also discuss the traits that are similar to it. So you may be interested in a particular trait you don't see listed here. Well, find the closest one, and it's most likely that the author will also cover the particular details that you are interested in. I want to read you just a short portion from the author's introduction to his work. So this is an excerpt from the introduction of Orchos Tzaddikim. Now, again, one of the things I love about this author's writing is he fills it with analogies and examples and these amazing parables you can put in your pocket and carry with you. And so not only are you learning, you'll find the book entertaining as well and easy to understand. And it's a book you'll want to go over again and again throughout your life. So in the introduction he says, there are traits that must be exhibited often, and there are traits which must be exhibited sparingly. This is analogous to someone cooking a dish and needing vegetables and meat, water, salt, and pepper. He must use all these ingredients by measure, a little of one, a lot of the other. If he limits the meat, the dish will be too thin. If he is over-generous with salt, it'll be too salty to eat. The same is true of character traits. There are those which must be adopted in a large measure, such as humility, shame, and the like, and those which must be adopted only sparingly, such as pride, audacity, and harshness. And it might surprise you to think that there are times when we need to demonstrate and practice a little bit of pride, be a little audacious at times, and even be harsh at times, but only sparingly. Therefore, a man must weigh all of his traits on the balanced scale, a scale of understanding, to use each trait in its proper amount. So this analogy of making a stew or a soup really stuck home with me. I remember the first time I read this, and I'd never forgotten it. That was many years ago. And I'm always asking God, help me to know when to be a lion and when to be a lamb. And all of us have a tendency to be more one or more the other. But if we're going to be like Messiah, we need to know when to be which and to what degree. So let me close this short teaching with another excerpt from the book. I'm going to read directly from the book this time. And this is the gate of envy. And in this chapter on envy, he talks about two kinds of people. The one who is a desirer, one who just wants things, and then the envier, the one who wants his neighbor's things. The desirer may want a big house, but the envier wants his neighbor's house. So here's the parable. A king once met a desirer and an envier walking together on the road. And he said to them, "Let one of you ask for something, and it will be given to him. But the other will get twice as much." The envier did not want to ask first, envying his friend a double portion. So the envier did not want to ask for $1 million because he would realize his neighbor would get $2 million. And the desirer desired the double portion, so he couldn't ask first because he knew the envier would get twice as much. Finally, the desirer pressed the envier to ask first, whereupon the envier asked that they gouge out one of his eyes and both of his friend's eyes. You know, I've met people who are so envious that they rather miss out on a blessing as long as it keeps their neighbor from also being blessed. But they rather go through pain and difficulty if it's going to make things more painful and difficult for their neighbor. So here the envier wanted one of his eyes be gouged out because the other one would get a double portion. He would get two eyes gouged out. So quite a great parable, isn't it? Won't ever forget that one, will you? So anyways, I really encourage you to get this book. I don't do that often, but this is one that's a keeper. It's one that you will discuss with your family and friends. It's one you'll find yourself quoting all the time. And as you go through, the author is quoting the scriptures over and over and over again. And as you go through, you'll be finding passages from the apostolic scriptures also to write in the margins. And it's a great book. So hope you've enjoyed this short little episode, and you'll order a copy of Orchos Tzaddikim. So till next time, God bless, and I wish you shalom.
Enough said.